Welcome back and happy Monday, Squirrel Nation. Today we are going to dive into some Mina play. Today's video is provided by one of our community members, Cho, and he is playing Mina support. So the three main topics of today's video are going to be identifying your win condition and team comps. The second thing will be the difference between when to engage versus when to disengage. And the last thing that we will cover today is bush control. Before we dive into the gameplay, I'm going to go over builds for Mina. So this is my preferred Mina build, and the build is up here, and the Arcana I use are down here. Let's just cover the Arcana real quick. I use Indomitable, Benevolence, and Valiance. I think this is a great generalized Arcana set for any support or tank or even most warriors. I don't think we really need to get into that much. The build, Windstone first into the tier 2 boots. The reason for that is I want the Windstone, I want the passive and the effect, so to help me regenerate and to help me get more gold. Then I go into boots because I want movement speed. Movement speed is essential on any roaming support because the quicker you roam, the more impact you can have on the game. Another reason on Mina especially that you want extra movement speed is because she needs, when she engages, she needs to close the gap between her and these 80 carries and mages, so she needs to be faster than them so that she can get close, land her S2 into ultimate. That's a great way for Mina to engage a fight. Same thing for disengaging. She needs to be able to catch up to her marksman or her mage that's running away and be able to peel enemies away from them to help them disengage from that fight. After I finish boots, I dive into the tier 3 support item. I do that. I chose Essence of the Wind because I just think it's the best support item, to be honest. Its passive or its effect is good, giving your lowest teammate a shield, and it provides good all-around stats. After that, I decide that I generally need magic resistance, so I dive into Gaia's. The reason I do that is because the effect, once again, is great. It helps me regenerate health. And for Mina especially, that's important because a Mina without health is basically useless to her team. And finally, Shield of the Lost and Mail of Pain are to build up my armor, and once again for their effects. Shield of the Lost is very useful on Mina because Mina is going to use her S2 to pull enemies in, and then she's going to ultimate, so all the enemies are going to be stacked on top in a very close proximity of Mina, so Shield of the Lost will heavily affect the assassins, the warriors, the marksmen who get pulled close to Mina. Finally, Mail of Pain is great against the ranged assassin or the ranged marksmen because they're attacking so frequently they're taking a significant amount of damage. It's also good against assassins, but just to a lesser degree. And anyways, that is the build. So as we talked about, one of the main things is identifying your win condition. Let's discuss on this real quick. If you look at Cho's team, what I am identifying is they have 2 tanks, Mina and Roxy, and they have 2 marksmen, and they have an Illumia. So to me, the main part of this comp is that you need to get to late game. So to me, when I look at that comp, it tells me late game. And the main reason for that is marksmen. Marksmen become extremely strong the later the game goes because marksmen are heavily reliant on farm and level. So to me, getting the Yorn and Violet to late game safely without my team losing too many towers, without my team giving up too many deaths, is the key. I would take this as almost a guaranteed win at that point, especially when you look at the enemy comp. The enemy comp has 2 assassins, Kriknak and Arya. They have 1 mage or 1 marksman in Violet, and they have Tolan and Thane. Thane is also a great tank, but so their team only has 1 tank. And they really have 3 assassins because even Tolan is a mage, but he's an assassin-style mage, not a heavy AoE damage type of mage. Tolan is extremely strong early game, and he does fall off late game. It becomes harder and harder to get value. And same with Kriknak and Ari, to me. Assassins have a harder and harder time because they're more likely to be killed before they can do anything of value, especially when you have 2 tanks in Roxy and Mina who can easily CC them and peel them away from their team's squishy players, the Yorn, the Violet, and the Illumia. So to me, win condition in this game for Cho's team is make it to late game without being too far behind, and it should be an easy win. For the enemy team below, win condition is just start snowballing from the beginning to the end of the game and end it as quickly as possible. Gank the marksman in Illumia as much as possible. With all the assassins you have, you can easily dive on top of them. Okay, having said that, let's dive in. So, as we said, today, a big focus when I watched Cho's play on Mina is Mina can be played in two ways, as an engager or a disengager. Okay, you can use your S2 to pull enemies to you and then ultimate and clump them all together for your team to do huge damage. And that will work. This is a great play, by the way, to pause on that, is pulling the... Cho is annoying the enemy jungle. That's a great move, right? That just cost their enemy jungler maybe 10 to 15 seconds of jungle clear speed, which means their jungler is going to roam slower, which means that Cho's team is going to be safer. And like we said, get to late game safe. Don't give up all the deaths. Okay, anyways, so that's that. Good starting play. So back to engaging versus disengaging. So right here, if Cho is looking to pull them in, that is an engagement. He's trying to pull the enemies. That is engaging. He's trying to pull them to him. He's trying to ultimate, and he's going to try to let his team land a bunch of AoE damage onto the enemies that he is CCing. That's an engagement. Disengagement is if, let's say, the Kriknak or the Ahri get onto Cho's team's backline, so the Violet, the Yorn, the Illumia, and he's going to S2 away like that. Like, he just disengaged the Violet, or he just disengaged for the Yorn. The Yorn was running away from Violet. Cho pulled Violet even further away from Yorn and interrupted her shot. That is a disengagement. So Mina, the true art to Mina is knowing when to engage and knowing when to disengage with your abilities. So throughout this game, I'm going to be pointing out times that I think Cho either engaged or disengaged wrong, or I think he did it right. So here, that was good. He's just being annoying, you know, getting chipped. Good, he runs away, doesn't keep eating Tolan's passive. Those are good things. Same thing here. Okay, in that case, I would have preferred that Cho stayed to soak that minion because there was nobody on his team that was going to soak the minion. And actually on that minion, I would have not killed it because Illumia could have got close enough to get golden experience from that minion dying. So general rule of thumb is a support, do not take golden experience that you don't need to. Like right now, there's no reason that Cho needs to sit there and soak any of the golden experience for that minion wave. However, when he was mid, that minion died with nobody around, so his team lost the golden experience. So that is another big thing. So I love, and I think something Cho does very good is he's very good at grabbing bushes. He runs into the bushes, he checks them. I think that's awesome. One of our other points on bush control is a weakness in Cho's game is that when he takes a bush, right, he establishes dominance of it right here. And see, notice, he just let a full wave crash into mid tower. I would have preferred if he would have went to soak that minion wave, because once again, we saw that there were 3 of his teammates bottom. Roxy was back. Nobody's going to make it to mid to soak that wave. So Cho, in the future, please soak waves that your team will not get golden experience for if you're not there. Okay, I mean, he got away from dying, that's good. Once again, if you have to burn stuff, that's fine. His team is starting to give up deaths. If you notice, the enemy is playing to their win condition. Remember, their win condition is snowball early, kill the marksman, don't let the marksman get fed, don't let them go beast mode. So the enemy team right now, I would say, is doing a better job of pushing their win condition. And back to bush control. So in this game, another theme is that Cho gives up bush control very easy. So right here, he's fighting for bush control. Great, he took bush control. Okay, now he's trying to advance his bush control. In this case, let's pause. That was a bad bush to check. The reason being is Roxy's here doing blue buff. She is not going to come help you. She is close, yes, but realistically, she's not going to stop doing blue buff to come help you. You have two teammates pushing heavily on the bottom lane, Yorn and Illumia. There was only one enemy visible on the map, and it was mid, and there's 4 people not showing, that's extremely scary. At that point, even as a Mina, Cho needs to know his limits. If 4 enemies jump Cho at this point, when he's only level 6 and all of them are at least a level ahead of him, he is going to get melted, even though he is a tank. So I like that he took the first bush. I do not like that he came around and tried to take this other bush with so many enemies missing. And notice, 4 people into the mid lane, unsurprisingly, and Mina just got there because of the blue buff. Another thing to be clear about is, another reason I don't like that is because our win condition, once again, the win condition is, for Cho's team, is get to late game without feeding kills, without losing tons of towers. Let your marksman farm, right? So top lane, nobody notices that it's getting pushed in, and they're probably going to lose another tower if the Arya stays. Okay, okay, so notice here, Cho's looking for a engagement type of S2, right? He's looking to land that S2 on the Violet. Which in that case is fine because the enemy assassins kind of, they weren't at a place in the fight where Cho needed to peel. So at that time, I'm fine for him looking for that engagement type ult. Another thing on the engagement, when you're playing Mina to engage, so when you're trying to S2 the enemies to your team, make sure you have damage there to follow up, right? So if you're just roaming around the map as Mina, trying to look to hook people and ult them, but you're not paying attention to where your teammates are, or if they're even with you, then guess what? You're totally wasting. So here, okay, there I'm not a fan of the ult or anything. Once again, that's a great example. There was no teammates around who even say he would have landed that. The teammates wouldn't even have been able to get there in time to put any significant damage out. So here, good engagement ult. That one I like. Right here, let's pause. You notice all the enemies are coming in here, right? So the enemy team is loading up. They just got a kill. Their team is ahead. And if Cho is watching, Yorn is low on health, right? The rest of the team is okay, but Yorn right here is very low. So if I'm Mina right here, I have a decent amount of health. Once again, I want my Yorn to farm. I do not want my Yorn to die because you cannot farm when you're dead. So the enemy team is here. They are going to try to jump on Yorn, guaranteed. A good player will always try to jump on the Yorn. So if I was Mina at this point, I am going to use my item to give Yorn a shield, and I am going to actually face check this bush, hoping that the enemies will target me. I know that I'll die, but at the same time, my Yorn should be able to run away with the rest of my squishy team. So I'm trying to make space. In my head right now, I'm trying to make space. So let's see how this plays. So Yorn does get away. Okay, and the Roxy actually did more of what I was thinking, is Roxy went into the bush and zoned. So I think that was a great job by Roxy. Mina hung back, but it's still good. Violet died because Violet chased. There's not really much Cho or Roxy could have done about that. Yorn did disengage, so that's great. Another key here is understanding your teammates. If I watch this Yorn, I can tell that he does know how to be safe. He does know how to stay alive. He's trying to farm. At this point in the game, I would actually be counting on Yorn a lot more to carry me than Violet. Right there, just go back later, you'll notice that Yorn actually just stunned Ahri, and then Cho comes in with a ultimate on top of Yorn's. So that can become a big thing, is when you're CCing enemies, try to not overlap your CC. So there, at this point, that's a rough engagement to me, and I'm actually going to back up there and pause. Because, let's watch, and I think I'm actually, yeah, I am watching this fast. This game feels very fast to me. If you watch this, okay, let's pause right here. Okay, if you look at Cho's team, what he needs to look at is, my Yorn is dead, my damage dealers do have high health, and the Violet is right next to me, and the Lumia's over here behind the tower. Roxy is doing her thing, but she's about to die. I hope he uses this item, but the other thing is, he's trying to pull the Tolan and Violet to him and Roxy. In this case, it's an engagement, right? And in this case, it's okay, but they have full health. They're level 11. Cho is level 9. Roxy, who is only level 10 and almost dead. Remember, Tolan has an execution type and ult where it's based on the amount of health you have left. So Roxy is extremely vulnerable right here. So in this case, I think it is a part where Cho should not engage. It's not a good position for his team. Even if he lands the S2, lands his ultimate, he's actually probably just going to put his team in a worse position. Tolan does a lot of damage close. If he pulls Tolan right here and Tolan lands his S1 with all 3 bolts onto Roxy, she is dead, right? And if she's not dead, he'll ultimate and she guarantee will be dead. But anyways, so he goes for this pull. Thankfully, I would say he misses it. He ran Tolan's ult into his Violet, so his Violet actually didn't need to die. His Violet died because he ran behind her, so Tolan's ult hit her. Once again, win condition. His win condition is absolutely his marksmen need to get fed, need to farm up, they need to be alive. So in that case, I would have much preferred that Cho let himself die to Tolan's ult than he killed his future carry. Okay, so at this point, we talked about win conditions, and you can see the enemy team is absolutely dictating the game towards their win condition. They are snowballing. They now have one of the high ground towers. The game is down to 3 towers period, and they just have a 6-kill lead. I mean, their team is absolutely doing what they need to do, and they've been repeatedly killing Cho's marksmen. So that's where win conditions matter, and where you have to change your playstyle based on your win conditions. You can't just go into every game and play the exact same. As you get better and better, and as you rank, you need to learn to identify what the win conditions of your comp are. So here, this is fine. They're posturing. Their team, I don't want them to go into the jungle and fight. The jungle is extremely dangerous. The enemies are way ahead of you. Notice, all the enemies are level 12. Cho is just hit level 10, right? Like, what are you expecting out of these fights? It's most likely not going to go well for your team. In this case, I would notice they're getting ambushed. There's so many bushes. Like, bush control again in the jungle is so hard because if you don't have vision in the bush, you just don't know if they're sitting there waiting to kill you. And with an enemy team that has 3 assassins on it, getting close to bushes is suicide. And look at how far their team is behind. Cricknack's already level 15. He is absolutely going to melt Yorn and Violet. They can't be putting themselves in situations where they're going to die. They can't face check brushes. They can't be getting into the jungle into these skirmishes. They need to sit back, defend their high towers, and farm up. That absolutely is what Cho's team needs to do at this point to recover. So he's looking through items. At this point, they have assassins. If I'm going to rush anything, it's not the I can't even think of the new name of it, but the reviving item. I would have got Shield of the Lost most likely because, to me, I want to pull in their assassins, ult them, and hope my team burns them. And here, okay, they get 1 assassin, but both tanks, in this case, Roxy and Mina, are stacking on top of each other instead of defending their carries. So, and see here, this is forcing a fight, right? Your team is already down 1 player. Your Violet is dead. You guys are significantly behind in gold and levels, and you're roaming right now. Now Cho has gone into the enemy side, and nobody's even following him. These are where the reason, if he did this and their team was ahead, great, it's outstanding. But at this point, you have to understand when your team is behind and change your playstyle. Your team is extremely far behind. Like right there, he used his ult, his pull as an engage, but who's with him? Nobody, right? Roxy's running away. Roxy's trying to get a kill. In Cho's mind, there needs to be a switch for, okay, I'm going to be a disengager. Like, when I went in the jungle and there's your Roxy and there's 3 enemies, in my mind, disengage, disengage, disengage. That's all I'm thinking. I'm not trying to pull their squishies and engage fights. I'm just keep disengaging my team, keep letting them farm. Right? Here. See, so right there, let's pause. Cho needs to be zoning these enemies so that his Illumia can clear these waves. At this point, you need to understand that you're playing from behind and your responsibility is shifting. It's right now, you're not worrying about clearing brush where your team is not. So Cho's way over here, his Illumia's here, Roxy's doing her thing, and Yorn and Violet, I think, are back. I think Violet might be mid also. Mina must be making it easy for Illumia and Violet to farm, to be safe, because the enemy team is absolutely looking to kill Mina and Illumia. If the enemy team kills the marksman on Cho's team right now, it's GG. Like, there is absolutely no way they're going to stop them from ending the game if their marksmen die. And if you noticed throughout the game, Cho runs into bushes, he takes control of them, and then he just instantly, okay, right there, he has control. In this bush, he has control. But he keeps leaving and giving up control. So leaving to give up control to get a deeper bush is okay, but there are limits to how deep you want to go. Like right now, this is completely useless to his team, right? He has 2 people bottom, he has a Yorn with him, and the Roxy's coming up. What is he going to achieve being in this bush right now? Right? In general, I understand he's worried about the enemy team doing Darkslayer, but none of your team is there, right? The enemies are going to check this bush. This is a common bush. And if you notice, he just peeked out of the bush. If you're going to stay in a bush, stay in the bush. Like, stay invisible. That's the great thing about the bushes. But if you're going to show the enemies, hey, I'm sitting in this bush with teammates, then you have just gotten rid of the value of the bush. Apologize. So, and same thing. Their team is spread out. Like we're kind of discussing here. I would blame that actually on Cho in this case. He went to take a bush that's way, way, way too forward. A few of his team members did agree with him, and they came to that bush. And then the enemy team saw Cho in the bush because he kept showing himself by walking in and out of the bush. And then they just got their Yorn killed, which, as we discussed before, is likely the character who is going to help them. So he is updating. I mean, that is a good thing. He's updating the build on the fly. I do disagree with the build that he is updating in this case. When you are behind, you should be trying to make yourself as tanky as possible. I don't think, and especially on a Mina, there's really no reason when you're behind to buy anything attack-oriented. Should just be stacking up your armor and your magic resistance. Another thing is Cho has been checking gold, which is great. He is updating his build, but he has not checked what the enemy's magic penetration, or sorry, not penetration, what their armor or their magic resistance is, or what their attack damage or AP damage is. So you can only make good purchasing decisions when you've gathered enough information about what the other team is doing. Okay, at this point, his carries are starting to get to their builds, right? The enemy, they have made it late game. They're 17 minutes. Yorn and Violet aren't quite there, but they are about there. And this is fine. He's running. He's made nice space. That disengagement was... He barely disengaged, and he barely disengaged Thane. And another thing is, he wasted all of his disengage, his peeling tools, on Thane, the tank. The tank is not who you need to worry about when they're on your squishies. Who you need to worry about is as soon as Cricknack and Ari saw him saw Cho blow his S2 and his ultimate, his peeling tools, if you notice, they dive onto his backline, his squishies, heavily. These are the people who you need to save your CC for. Right? So this is ability management. You need to, in your mind at all times, you should be thinking, who am I trying to hook? Who am I trying to ult? And that fight cost their team. I think they did force that fight too much. Their team was just getting back in, right? The Violet was just hitting level 15. The Yorn was just hitting level 15. If we look at their builds, I'm going to guess they weren't quite mad. They were probably on their 5th item. Maybe they were starting to build their 6th item. So if they wouldn't have forced the fight here mid, way extended, right? Way away from towers, way away from their core. If they would have just let the wave push in, they would have cleared this, they would have maybe just kept delaying for another 3 minutes, then they would have been at a point where their team all of a sudden is the powerful team, their marksmen would kick in, the assassins would try to come in, Cho could peel them, ult them, the assassins would almost be instantly killed, and then their team could just push straight down the middle and end the game. So anyways, I think this was outstanding gameplay that Cho submitted. This is the type of game that you can learn the most from because it is a loss. It's easier for me to point out things that you could do to have turned this into a win when you submit me a loss. So in the future, I think it's great when you guys submit videos, if you submit me videos of your losses. Overall, I think this was a game that Cho could have won by just polishing certain aspects of his game. The main thing for him, I would say, is work on his engagement versus his disengagement. When it comes to disengaging, put a lot more focus on it. Do not use all of your disengagement tools on the enemy tanks. Save them for the enemy assassins. Save them for the people on the enemy team who are doing the most damage. So that I count as ability management. So to me, watching this video, that is the #1 thing that I think Cho should focus on of all the things we covered. Having said that, if you liked this content, if you enjoyed what I did today, please like and subscribe and leave your comments down below. If you just say, hey, love the video, that's awesome. That encourages me so much and just means the world to me. Anyways, if you're looking for a community to help you improve, to answer your questions, to review your gameplay like I am doing now, then check out Squirrel Nation Discord, which is in the links below. And as always, I hope you have an amazing day and happy ranking. Take care.